Good morning, everyone. It's Lee Henson, President and Founder of AgileDad, and it's time for today's episode of the Daily Standup. So, without any further ado, let's get started. Today, I wanted to talk to you about something that many people don't like to discuss. It's a taboo subject. It's the missing link when it comes to your Agile implementation and why Agile becomes so easily misunderstood at the organizational or corporate level. This is the piece that SAFe focuses on quite a bit that many other Agile frameworks tend to overlook. Anyone have a guess what it might be? If you said roadmap, you're absolutely correct. And I think that the reason why the roadmap is so often overlooked is because it's so easily misunderstood. Why is it important? Why do we have one? What should we be doing with it, etc.? I mean, I think most organizations, for example, a software organization, if you're building software, you build an increment, you test the increment, you learn what needs to change, and then you feed that knowledge back into step one, build the increment, and just repeat it, right? It's wash, rinse, repeat. It's what I call the shampoo cycle. And, that is fundamentally different from what waterfall teaches us, right? We should be delivering working product in small batches early and often, and we could frequently pivot and adjust the product in light of new information that we receive when we deliver working batches. So it teaches us to build small, inspect, adapt, and repeat. But it teaches us that we need to have that feedback loop in order to be successful. It's going to make it really impossible for us to pivot if we don't have the feedback loop. But the question is, that's okay, so that's the easy part of Agile. How does this tie into road mapping? And the answer is, it's actually pretty simple. The concept of work in progress or WIP limits. WIP limits was never really, while WIP limits was invented to show, I guess I should say, how lean or Kanban organizations could limit the scope of how many things were in progress in order to improve quality and deliver faster, that same practice can be applied to Agile holistically or projects at a roadmap level. So, whether you're building small projects or whether you're working on a large product incrementally, you can plan out using a roadmap to make sure that teams are not exceeding the amount of work that they can actively consume, right? And I think it's important for us to adjust and pivot based on those things. So, what I've seen many organizations do, which is pretty cool, is they build what they call a feature roadmap. And they do the features for the entire project in a roadmap. And what winds up happening, interestingly enough, is when they list out all the high level features, across multiple products, it almost starts to look like a Gantt chart because you can see how the projects are going to, how the product or project's going to be delivered, and you can see these increments and where they lie. So I think it's the stacking in a way that it's divided and a way that it's forecasted that proves to show what the next features are in the queue, where they land, and what's going to happen. But what's interesting is when you look at it at first and you see that it looks like a Gantt chart, a lot of people get scared. And it's nothing to be scared of as long as you understand which teams are contributing. And oftentimes I use color to differentiate between the teams, so that way we can see and get a good idea of which teams are responsible for delivering which features. So if you see a constant time mark on a timeline where everything in there is green or everything's red or everything's yellow, you know that that team's probably doing way too much work. Now, a lot of people look at me and they say, "Are you trying to say that a Gantt chart is possible in Agile?" Not necessarily. What I am saying is that you can do Agile earned value, and the result, the product, the byproduct that you get is an Agile roadmap by feature, which is really, really interesting. So the truth is, organizations at a corporate level still rely on roadmaps and have been for centuries to make sure they understand deadlines, risk management, and how they can get things delivered. It places a deliberate focus on just-in-time planning, and it helps us to really understand what's out on the horizon. But we don't want to plan too far out on the horizon, or else that doesn't make sense. But we also don't want to wait until the last minute to do everything because that doesn't make sense either. So the missing piece right there in the middle between this huge technical user requirements document that covers everything for the next 9 years, and nine's an exaggeration, and let's plan for what we're going to do tomorrow. The missing piece in between that is having a solid roadmap that gives you some forward planning with the intention that you're not going to plan too far ahead, but you're going to show what people can expect to see next. And I think that is the key. And it is the missing piece of Agile. So there's a clue right there in the name. So the name Agile, it's the ability to move quickly and easily. The first synonym of Agile is nimble. And the purpose of Agile is you can incrementally deliver value and then pivot quickly based on what the market tells you. So it's this fast feedback cycle built upon observation and reaction to what's happening in the real world. And I think that when you look at it that way, that explains why the year-long Gantt chart doesn't work, but it also explains how you can use Agile earned value to measure time against budget, against delivery. And I think that's important for us to map that, or else we have chaos. So if we ask ourselves, okay, how do we build things in general anyway? Oftentimes we'll focus on a set of features, a feature grouping, or we'll focus on individual features and deliver feature A, then B, then C, etc. Because this is natural human behavior, it makes sense to lay things out in such a way that we can see where we are and what things are happening. But don't get so hung up on a roadmap that it becomes the Bible of what you're going to do, right? We don't want it to become the end all be all of what's going to happen for the next 3 years. I think that it's healthy though to have some roadmap state that shows where we are today and where we're headed. It helps us make sure that we're keeping the integrity of both our vision and our strategy. Sorry. But it's going to help us also understand that we're not doing scrum or fall, that we're not trying to morph traditional practices into agile practices, but that we're trying to get a better understanding of how our current process works and how we're adapting and what we're trying to do over time. And I think that a roadmap shows that no team is overburdened, that we're scaling properly, and that we're doing the things that are necessary in order for us to be able to easily pivot and maneuver. We want to try hard to deliver product goals, working product goals, or working product increments in small batches early and often. And we can't be afraid to pivot if we need to. It's okay. Because if you do Agile properly, it's going to allow you to get something out in a release and then plan for the next release and re-release if you need to, right? It's never going to be perfect. Agile is all about iterative. It's about iterating. It's about making things better as you go. It's about continuous improvement and Kaizen. So you can't make a path that's not flexible. If your path's not malleable, you're going to fail. You should define a vision or end goal, but you have to be specific to what features map to that goal. And if something doesn't map to the goal, you either need to adjust the goal or adjust the features, right? And I think that sometimes we don't take that into consideration. Second, we need some empty space in our plan. I know that sounds crazy, but you need to have the ability to pivot and improve. You can't just fully allocate everyone at 230% of their time and hope that everything falls into place. Good luck with that, right? And finally, you need support. And it's support of the team, support of leadership, and support of all people who are key to making sure Agile is going to work the way that it should. I think that oftentimes we try too hard to structure things in such a way that it becomes more rigid. It loses its flexibility. And I think that we almost need to focus on what are we doing now, what's coming up next, and what do we plan on doing later. And the further out we get, the more big and vague it becomes. But the things that we're doing now should be very clearly defined at a feature level. The things we're doing next should have some context to them, and we should be able to see what's going on. And then, of course, the things we're doing later can easily be broken down into smaller pieces. So I think that in conclusion, what I'm trying to say is that it's important for us to figure out as an organization, how are we approaching business agility? And are we leveraging the roadmap to be the bridge to take us from the vision and strategy to what the team should be working on and how they're addressing current needs, as well as are they allowing people to properly assess and do risk management, which is what we talked about for the last couple of days? And are they meeting the needs of the organization and allowing road mapping to do its part? I hope you found value in this. I know that I did. It's just interesting because I think road mapping is not used enough. So if you have questions about Agile road mapping, feel free to reach out. Learn more at agiledad.com, where I'd love to help you understand how to better roadmap. We have lots of training and courses and videos and things that you can use to help you determine with confidence that you can roadmap as well. As always, we encourage you to stay healthy, stay well, and stay agile, my friends. Until next time, do take care.